The world was gone, reduced to ash and shadow. Where vibrant cities once touched the sky, only skeletal remains stood. They clawed at the smoke-filled sky, monuments to a lost world. The air was heavy, thick with the stench of death and decay. A silence hung over everything, broken only by the whisper of wind through shattered glass. This was the world after, the world reborn in fire and choked by ash. The land was scarred and broken, a patchwork of craters and rubble. Twisted metal skeletons reached up from the wasteland, like the grasping claws of some fallen god. Yet, somewhere in the ruins, life endured. Scattered pockets of humanity clung to existence. They were haunted by memories of the old world, of green fields and blue skies. Now they inhabited a nightmare, a desolate landscape where every shadow could hide a horror. The nuclear firestorm had birthed something monstrous. Twisted, mutated creatures stalked the ruins. It began like any other day. The sun rose, casting its golden glow upon a world unaware. People went about their lives, oblivious to the impending doom. Children laughed, their voices echoing in a world on the brink of silence. Then the sirens wailed, a high-pitched keen, splitting the air, shattering the illusion of normalcy. Panic flooded the streets. The sky, once a clear blue canvas, became a canvas of fire. Missiles trailing smoke and carrying death streaked across the horizon. Cities, once teeming with life, were swallowed by blinding flashes. Mushroom clouds, harbingers of annihilation, climbed high into the sky. The earth shook, a death rattle that echoed across continents. The lucky ones died quickly, vaporized in the blink of an eye. Others were not so fortunate. Survival was a daily struggle, a constant battle against the elements and unseen horrors. Food and clean water were precious commodities, fought over and hoarded. Trust was a luxury no one could afford. Every stranger was a potential threat, every shadow a lurking predator. They moved like ghosts through the ruins, their footsteps muffled by the dust. Their eyes darted nervously, scanning for any sign of danger. They sought shelter in the skeletal remains of buildings, their sleep haunted by nightmares of fire and screams. Sleep offered little comfort. It was a shallow thing, easily broken by the slightest sound. They scavenged for scraps, their fingers prying open rusted cans. A moldy crust of bread was a feast. They ate like animals, driven by a primal need to survive. They drank rainwater collected in dented metal sheets, their throats raw from thirst. The mutants were a constant threat, their presence a suffocating weight on the survivors' souls. They were drawn to the scent of living flesh, their senses heightened by the mutation that twisted their bodies. They were relentless hunters, their hunger an insatiable beast. They were grotesque parodies of human beings, their skin hung in loose, irradiated folds, revealing bones beneath. Some had extra limbs, twisted and gnarled. Others sported gaping wounds that never seemed to heal, oozing pus and blood. Their eyes glowed with an eerie light, devoid of reason, reflecting only primal hunger. They tore into their victims with a savage fury. their teeth often little more than jagged shards of bone, ripping and tearing. They devoured everything, leaving nothing but blood-stained bones and the echo of their victims' screams. Rumors spread like wildfire through the survivor camps, whispers of a haven, a place untouched by the firestorm, a place where food was plentiful and clean water flowed freely, a place called Sanctuary. The rumors were always the same. Sanctuary was real, a beacon of hope in the desolate wasteland. It was a place where they could rebuild, where they could finally be safe, a place where the horrors of the past could be forgotten. Hope, however fragile, began to blossom in the hearts of the survivors. Some dismissed the rumors as nothing more than wishful thinking, a cruel trick of their desperate minds, but others clung to them fiercely. They held on to the hope that Sanctuary offered, no matter how improbable it seemed. One day, a stranger stumbled into one of the camps. He spoke of Sanctuary. The stranger's arrival ignited a firestorm of debate among the survivors. Some were eager to follow, their desperation outweighing their caution. They were willing to risk everything on the promise of a better life. They packed their meager belongings, their eyes shining with a desperate hope. Others were wary, their instincts screaming at them to be cautious. They had learned the hard way that trust was a dangerous commodity in this new world. They pointed out the lack of evidence, the inconsistencies in the stranger's story. They urged caution, warning of the dangers of blind faith. The camp was split. Families were torn apart, friendships fractured. The promise of Sanctuary had driven a wedge between them. The journey was fraught with danger. The wasteland was a treacherous maze of rubble and ruin. The air was thick with dust, obscuring the sun and making every breath a struggle. The group moved like phantoms through the desolate landscape, their footsteps echoing in the silence. They scavenged for food and water, their bodies growing weaker with each passing day. They encountered other survivors, their eyes hollowed out by hunger and despair. Some were hostile, driven mad by the harsh realities of their existence. Others were too weak to pose a threat, their bodies ravaged by radiation sickness. The mutants were a constant menace, their presence lurking at the edges of their perception. They could hear their guttural growls echoing in the distance. They could smell the stench of their decaying flesh on the wind. Each encounter left them shaken, their nerves frayed. As days turned into weeks, the group's numbers dwindled. Some succumbed to exhaustion, their bodies simply giving out. Others fell victim to the mutants, their screams swallowed by the vast emptiness of the wasteland. The survivors mourned their losses in silence, their tears drying quickly in the arid air. They found solace in each other's company, their shared humanity a beacon in the darkness. They told stories of the old world, of green fields and bustling cities, of families and loved ones lost. They clung to these memories, however painful they might be, for they were all that remained of their former lives. One evening, as they huddled around a meager fire, seeking warmth against the encroaching chill of the night, they heard a sound. It was faint at first, a distant melody carried on the wind. As they listened more intently, it grew louder. It was the sound of music. But this was not the haven they had imagined. The music they discovered was a lure, a siren song designed to attract unsuspecting prey. The inhabitants of Sanctuary were not the benevolent souls they had hoped for. They were scavengers, predators who preyed on the weak and desperate. They had lured the survivors here with the promise of safety, only to trap them. The survivors, their hopes dashed and their spirits broken, were forced to fight for their lives. They had come so far, endured so much, only to find themselves betrayed by their own kind. The battle was brutal and short-lived. Outnumbered and outmatched, the survivors were quickly subdued. Their captors, their faces twisted into cruel smiles, closed in. Just when all hope seemed lost, a figure emerged from the shadows. It was the stranger, their guide, but he was different now. His eyes, once filled with fear and paranoia, now burned with a cold fury. He had led them here, not to save them, but to exact his revenge.